Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back to the Perfectly Imperfect Spiritual Podcast. If you're new here, my name is Marta. I'm a psychic medium, angel cards reader, spiritual mentor, and teacher. And this podcast is a space for honest conversations about intuition, boundaries, grief, and learning how to live in a way that actually works for you. And I have my cup of coffee, so I hope you have your drink with you as well. I'll be sipping that. And today I want to talk about Christmas. We'll talk about Christmas, but let me know in the comments how you've been, what's happening, and we'll dive into today's subject in a second. So, we're going to be talking, or I'm going to be talking, and I'll be channeling some of my spirit guides, angels. We'll see what happens. But today I want to talk about Christmas, but not the idealized version, but the real experience of it. Because this season has a way of amplifying everything. The expectations get louder, the pressure to gather more, socialize more, be available more, enjoy things in a very specific way. And what I've been noticing again and again in readings, in mentorship sessions, and in my own inner listening is how many people are quietly struggling with this time of the year. People are tired, overstimulated. You might relate to some of those things. And perhaps you're wondering if something is wrong with you for not enjoying it at all. So, this episode is here to slow things down, bring some honesty, and remind you that Christmas doesn't have to look one way. Mm, I love my coffee. Second one. I've just finished my matcha. I don't know whether it was a good idea, but yeah, it's a very nice one. Okay, let's talk. One of the biggest things that comes up at Christmas is guilt. And I want to talk about what guilt actually is because it's often misunderstood. Guilt is not always a moral compass. Very often, guilt is conditioning. It's what we feel when we've been taught that our needs are inconvenient, that saying no upsets people, that keeping the peace matters more than keeping ourselves well. So when you start honoring your limits, guilt shows up. And not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're doing something different. This is where people pleasing comes in, and people pleasing isn't kindness. It's one of the survival strategies, and it develops when, at some point, it feels safer to adapt than to be honest. And spirit world is really asking you to be honest with yourself. What is it that you're okay with? What is it that you're not okay? Uh, where have you been complacent because you didn't want to disappoint others? And is it worth to carry on concentrating on others as opposed to focusing on your own needs? Why are you disappointing yourself? And spirit is also telling me that some of you prefer to stay quiet rather than risking rejection. And Christmas activates that pattern deeply. So if you can relate to anything, I want you to be kind towards yourself, but be mindful of what's going on. And I know that during Christmas, there are many questions that are uncomfortable that can, well, rise to the surface, but they're very important. So ask yourself, why are you living your life according to other people's expectations instead of your own? Mm. And spirit world, I'll have another sip of coffee, really wants you Mm. Really wants you to be honest with yourself, because this is what I keep hearing right now. You don't have to attend every gathering, you don't have to put yourself in rooms where you feel judged, interrogated, or energetically drained. And you don't have to answer uncomfortable questions about your life, your choices, your body, or your timing. You are allowed to say, I am not doing it. And you don't need an excuse. You don't need a dramatic reason. And you don't need permission. What spirit world wants you to remember is that you are allowed to spend Christmas with the people who genuinely lift you, or perhaps on your own. And you do not have to spend Christmas in a way that works for other people. You can choose what works for yourself. You can choose peace and quiet over noise. You can just do things your way. And Spirit keeps reminding you. I know this message is going to be important for some of you, that if being around someone costs you days of recovery, that's information, not something to override. And because someone is your blood related family doesn't mean that you have to say yes to every family gathering. You can still choose yourself. So let's talk about those gatherings. Yeah. Let's talk about family gatherings. Because I know family dynamics, they can be very complex. And there may be children involved or situations where perhaps opting out doesn't feel straightforward. So if you do choose to go, but you feel like ideally I wouldn't want to go, but like, okay, I feel like I have to. I want to talk about protection and not endurance. So you don't have to emotionally engage just because you're physically present. You don't have to overshare, and you don't have to explain yourself. Silence is a boundary, and changing the subject is a boundary. Leaving early is a boundary. And you're allowed to have an exit plan. You're allowed to drive yourself. You are allowed to step outside, breathe, and regulate. And I want you to know that this isn't rudeness, it is self responsibility. Also, Spirit World wants you to remember, stop negotiating with people who benefit from you having no boundaries. If someone is offended by your self care, that tells you something important, because love doesn't require you to disappear. Hmm. So I think if you relate to that, it would be really nice for you to spend some time with yourself and ask, how can I prepare myself for this Christmas season? And ask yourself, how can I protect my energy before um, attending a family gathering? But also be mindful if you are feeling tensed or stressed about meeting certain family members, why is it? But yes, energy, protecting your energy is always a very good thing to do, no matter with whom you're going to spend time with. And I've talked about it many times, and I know everyone's got their own ways of grounding themselves and making sure that they are protected. So choose whatever works for you. What I like doing is definitely grounding myself to Mother Earth, because her energy is just so beautiful, and you can anchor yourself um, to the crystalline grid of Mother Earth, and that's very peaceful. And then you can surround yourself with some bubbles of protective light. You can choose the type of light and color that works for you. And it's the same when you work with specific archangels. Choose the archangel that resonates with you. You can work with Archangel Michael and ask him to surround you with a bubble of protective light that's blue. But you can work with other angels, and surround yourself with that protective bubble of light, and that's going to really help you. Yeah. Another piece here, something that Spirit World wants to talk about, is that a lot of suffering at Christmas doesn't come from the gathering itself, it comes from expectation. So we go in hoping it will be different this time, that people will behave better, that conversations will be easier, that someone will finally understand us. But you cannot control how other people behave. You cannot force emotional maturity, and you cannot make a family dynamic suddenly become something it has never been. So, trying to make Christmas ideal is exhausting because it's out of your control. And Spirit World keeps reminding us that sometimes the most self protective thing you can do is to release expectation. Not in a hopeless way, but in an honest way. I often think of it like the weather here in Scotland. I don't check the forecast obsessively, or I don't think I check the weather forecast at all. I just look through the window because it's so unpredictable here. And frequently, I just assume it's going to be windy and rainy. And if the sun comes out, I'm genuinely pleased. I'm so surprised. It's a positive surprise. That doesn't make me negative, it makes me practical. So, family gatherings can be the same. You can go in grounded energy, meet people as they are, not as you wish they would be, and release the fantasy of an ideal, Christmas, ideal celebration. And if things feel lighter than expected, let that be a gift. Enjoy it. I really believe that letting go of expectation doesn't mean tolerating bad behavior, but it means not fighting reality. And that alone can protect your nervous system far more than trying to manage or fix the situation. And we're going to talk about grief in a second. Just have another sip of my coffee. Because Christmas also brings up grief, not just the grief of loved ones who have passed, but layered grief. Missing people who are no longer here, missing relationships that changed, missing versions of life that no longer exist. So even when people are still alive, there can be a sense of absence at this time of the year. And I also know that you might have many loved ones on the other side. So this particular time of the year might be very challenging for you. I have so many loved ones on the other side, and they leave me beautiful signs and symbols. And I want to say this honestly. Sometimes I feel, it feels easier to communicate with loved ones in spirit than with humans here on earth. Human relationships are complex, noisy, and emotionally layered. Spirit communication is often quieter and cleaner without expectation. That doesn't mean we have to reject the human experience. It means being sensitive to stimulation and complexity might be challenging. But this is what I keep hearing from the perspective of the spirit world. This is important. And this is what I keep hearing now. So, loved ones on the other side, they don't experience Christmas the way we do. They don't measure love through gatherings, rituals, or dates. They don't need you to suffer to remember them. They don't want you forcing yourself through pain to prove devotion. And connection with spirit comes most clearly when the nervous system is calm, when there is space, when the body feels safe. And quiet moments are often where presence is felt most strongly. So if you've been missing a particular loved one in the spirit world, quieting your mind and prioritizing yourself is going to allow you to be so much more open to the communication from the other side. Because you might be aware all of a sudden of a memory that surfaces, a feeling of warmth, a sense of being accompanied. When you just feel like, oh, I feel like the presence of my loved ones. I feel like my mom is next to me, trusted. And you don't need to chase signs, you don't need proof. Presence itself is connection. Spirit world wants you to trust that when you think about your loved ones, when a memory pops into your mind about a particular loved one, when a song plays that you associated with a particular loved one, know that it is them communicating with them. So, if you want to honor loved ones who are on the other side this Christmas, it doesn't need to be complicated. You might choose to light a candle quietly, speak their name out loud when you're alone. You can also cook something they loved. You can take a walk and think of them. Or perhaps, if you like writing, write them a letter without expecting a response. Or if you want to expect a response, then you can go even deeper. You can write them a letter and then you can write the response, which would be part of the automatic writing exercise. But the most important is to set yourself a time and allow yourself to write without second guessing yourself. That can be a fun way of connecting with your loved ones during this Christmas season. And communication with the spirit world is to be fun. Your loved ones want you to be happy. They want to see you happy. But they also want you to know that there is no right way in terms of how you're going to honor your loved ones and how you're going to communicate with them. You can ask them for signs and symbols and then be aware because they can appear to you in different forms. You can hear a word, you can see a symbol. It depends on the nature of the symbol that you asked. But also, you might ask your loved ones who are on the other side to give you a sign and symbol and leave it up to them to show you something that you would know straight away that this is them communicating with them, with you, sorry. I just keep hearing that spirit world sometimes communicates in a very subtle way. Communication from the other side is not always very loud. So have your ears opened, have your eyes wide opened, and allow the spirit world to surprise you in the most magical, miraculous ways. And again, spirit world wants you to remember that boundaries are so important during the Christmas season. I think they're important most of the time, but boundaries are not a blockage to spirit, they're a pathway. So, in a way, by you saying no to certain people who perhaps are not lifting you up during Christmas season, you are enhancing your communication with the spirit world. Because when your nervous system feels supported, your intuition deepens. When you stop forcing yourself, your clarity returns. And when you honor your rhythm, then the connection with the spirit world becomes steadier. So if it is challenging for you to choose what works for you when negotiating what is it that you're going to do during the Christmas season, perhaps you can think about this as a way of strengthening or establishing a communication with your loved ones on the other side. Because Christmas doesn't have to be loud to be meaningful. Of course, it can be if it's something that works for you. But basically, it doesn't have to look one way. Do whatever works for you. And you don't have to say yes to everything. Remember, you don't have to override yourself to belong. And if this season feels heavy, let this be your reminder that you're allowed to choose differently, you're allowed to opt out, you are allowed to protect your energy, you are allowed to honor how you are wired. One honest choice at a time is enough. Before we close, I want to offer you a moment to land. We'll do a quick visualization, meditation. I'll have another sip of coffee. I don't want to drink it cold. I would still enjoy it. So, before we close, if it feels comfortable, and if you're not driving, you might close your eyes or simply soften your gaze. Do whatever works for you. Bring your attention to your body. Notice where you're holding tension. And without trying to change anything, allow yourself to breathe. So don't change your breath. Just breathe in and out. And you don't have to make your breaths longer, shorter. Just breathe and be mindful of that. So take another deep breath in, or shallow. In and out. In and out. And imagine yourself surrounded by enough space, not isolation, just space. Space to think, space to feel, space to be exactly as you are. Spirit world wants you to know that you don't need to fix anything right now. You don't need to decide anything. You don't need to perform. Just notice that you're here. And if affirmations feel supportive for you, you might quietly say, or out loud, I am allowed to choose what works for me. I am allowed to choose what works for me. Let's do it one more time. I am allowed to choose what works for me. I am allowed to honor my nervous system. I am allowed to honor my nervous system. I am allowed to honor my nervous system. I am allowed to say no without guilt. I am allowed to say no without guilt. I am allowed to say no without guilt. I am allowed to rest without explanation. I am allowed to rest without explanation. I am allowed to rest without explanation. And last one, I trust myself to navigate this season in my own way. I trust myself to navigate this season in my own way. I trust myself to navigate this season in my own way. Take one more steady breath in and out. And when you're ready, you can return to your day. Before I go, I want to say this as well. Well, first of all, if you're celebrating Christmas, I want to wish you very peaceful, beautiful Christmas time with your loved ones, whether here or those on the other side. I hope you are going to allow yourself to bring more magic to that experience, and that you're going to allow to be surprised by beautiful signs and symbols, the way your loved ones are able to let you know that they're around you. So yes, I wish you a deeper awareness of how they're interrupting, of how your loved ones are by your side and how they are cheering you and how they're communicating with you. And I hope you allow yourself to spend some time with yourself so you can recalibrate your energy and you can actually get honest with yourself. What is it that I really need? What is it that I feel like doing? Okay, and I'll be sharing more solo episodes like this because this is what I'm being guided to do right now. And I would love these conversations to be shaped by what's genuinely coming up for you. That was loud. I got scared of my own voice. Yes, but if there are questions you're sitting with, themes you like me to explore, or topics you would like me to speak into, feel free to reach out, and you can email me or send me a DM on Instagram at Marta the Medium. I read them, and they often guide what I speak about next. So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening, and thank you for trusting yourself a little more deeply. I am sending everyone so much love, and I will see you all soon. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you.